I'm Jen, and today we're going to build my March TBR. We're going to do that with the help of my TBR jar, which I did size up so that I can shuffle it better while we do this. And let's get started with the horror book that I chose last time, which is My Soul to Keep by Tananarive. I did not get a chance to read this last month, so I'm going to leave it on the TBR as my horror pick. This is a vampire novel. The quote I like on the back says, "My Soul to Keep is a smart, savvy, sexy thriller of a novel with culture, music, and lives of Black folks at its core." So I'm going to keep this one on my TBR because there's really nothing I could pull out of the jar that I want to read more than this one. And then last month for science fiction, I pulled out Red Rising, which I did read. The series is basically Hunger Games set in space. And since I do have a copy of Golden Sun, I'm going to put Golden Sun in the TBR jar before I pick for this month. And I also read the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin, which was absolutely incredible. And I'm going to go ahead and put the second one of this series. It's the Broken Earth trilogy. I'm going to put the second one of this in the jar as well before I pick. And then we're going to pull out an orange one, which is going to be sci-fi. Infinity Gate. This is a book by M.R. Carey. Infinity Gate is a multiverse type of story where there are portals into other worlds. I did start reading this a bit when it first came out, and it reminded me very much of an Adrian Tchaikovsky type of story, so I'm really excited to get back into this one and put it on my TBR this month. For my romance read last month, I did pull out Love on the Brain, which I did not have a chance to read. I'm going to keep it on the list because I do want to read this one. This one is a STEM-based romance where these are scientists, and I don't know if it's like a enemies to lovers or, yes, nemesis. So an enemies to lovers STEM science romance, and I'm going to be keeping this one on the list for March. So normally I use green for my new releases for the year that I'm in, and this past month I read A Killing Cold by Kate Alice Marshall, and I'm not going to pull a green out of the list because my new release that I have that I'm going to read is Famous Last Words by Gillian McAllister. I believe this is the one where her husband turns out to be involved in a hostage situation. I think she gets a phone call and it turns out that her husband isn't the hostage, he's the one who is holding the people hostage. So this is going to be a really fun one and I'm excited to read it this month. Next up we have fantasy. I did pull 2 V.E. Schwabs out of the jar last month, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue and A Darker Shade of Magic. I did attempt to read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, but I was having a book hangover at the time and I couldn't find what I was in the mood for, and I definitely wasn't in the mood for this one. And I feel like when I am in the mood to read this one, I'm going to wind up loving it, so I didn't want to force it. So I'm going to go ahead and put this one back in the jar, and I'm also going to put A Darker Shade of Magic back in the jar, and then maybe when I'm in the mood for them, that will be a better time. So I'm going to go ahead and pull a fantasy pick, which is blue here. Let's see what it says. The Bone Ships. Oh, I'm a little scared. Okay, so the Bone Ships, the first time I tried reading the Bone Ships, I made it halfway through and I DNF'd it. But I think I'm going to go ahead and give it another shot. I did put it in the jar because I wanted to give another shot. I saw so many reviews that said the second half was much better than the first, and I just probably didn't give it enough time. Let me go get that real quick. Okay, I'm just going to have the cover showing on the screen. I don't know where I put my copy. I know I didn't get rid of it because the cover is so beautiful and I did want to try to read it again. So we're going to give it a try this month to read The Bone Ships. I'm also currently reading The Bands of Mourning by Brandon Sanderson. So this will also be on the TBR for fantasy. This is where I currently am in my Cosmere journey. So those books I probably won't be pulling out of the jar each month. So, another horror pick this month for me, which is also going to cover my YA category, is Don't Let the Forest In by C.G. Drews. In this, the main character is really into fairy tales, and his drawings of monsters start coming to life, and I think they start killing people. This is the selection for the Horror Spotlight Discord. I'll leave a link in the description in case you want to join us. We pick a horror book every month that's written by a marginalized author. We also do buddy reads and other fun things, so join us if you'd also like to read Don't Let the Forest In or any of the books that we're going to pick in the rest of the year. A couple of books that we are keeping on the March TBR that we drew out of the jar last month that I did not get a chance to read are Mrs. Frisby and the Rats of Nim and True Grit. So that just leaves a thriller book. I know we have Gillian Anderson on there, Gillian McAllister on there. But let's go ahead and pull out one more in case we have time for another thriller, because I would like to get my thriller books down and read. We Were Never Here. Okay, let me grab We Were Never Here. We Were Never Here is by Andrea Bartz, and in this one, it's a backpacking trip, and I believe it's two best friends who are going backpacking, and instead of one of the best friend main characters dying, I think one of them hooks up with another backpacker, and he winds up dead, and the best friend is like, wait a minute, that same thing happened last year. Is it a coincidence that two backpackers were attacked and murdered on our trips, or did her friend have something to do with it? I think this is going to be fun, and that should round out my TBR for March. Let me see if I can gather these up and do a full stack. Okay, and this is what we have built for the March TBR. Thank you so much for joining me today, and please leave me a comment and let me know if you have read any of these, what you're looking forward to reading in March. If you can't think of anything else to say, just leave me the star emoji, and don't forget to subscribe. It would really help me since I'm brand new here, and I will talk to you soon.